There's meant to be a seamlessness if one is aspiring towards the highest path to reach the greatest vibrational altitude and connect to the Most High, be liberated, be in an enlightened state. There should be a seamlessness between work life, play, sacred practices, and the loyalty to the only true employer, which is God. There's always a letting go in order to be liberated and not affected by the collective condition or individual energies. A seamlessness because what personal life does one really have when there's meant to be a conscious separation from personhood? That's essentially the crux of it, to dissolve personhood and self-orientation so that there's a seamlessness between work and play. Dedicated focus, discipline, and intentionality must be upheld in order to not fall from grace. What a beautiful life experience one aspires towards, and it's possible to aim for that and reach that state, though it can be an immensely difficult journey of karmic transmutation because we humans have higher desires, lower desires in terms of what part of our system and consciousness those impulses are emanating from, and which of the desires will win from moment to moment. Because we want to sometimes roll around in the mud with the other humans and be foolishly childlike. We'll deal with it later. And we want to be alive in ways that aren't steeped in ultimate wisdom, but we'll deal with it later. We want to have experiences that don't have the ingredients for longevity. We'll deal with it later. And then there's the ones who aspire to be as close to God as possible, the light workers, the healers, the empaths, who ask all throughout their journey, how do I honor myself in my exalted path while living in a grounded way where my root chakra is healthy and activated? How do I joyfully coexist with and connect to a society I don't resonate with? How do I prosper within systems I don't want to participate in or feed any further? The most sensitive ones wonder, how do we purge without going too far into the trenches due to our empathic abilities, our nature to feel so much? How do we not become drenched by unpleasant memories or temporary events and circumstances and other people's plights? How do we do these dances with life unless we have flexibility in our limbs? Unless we've stretched first, unless we go through strength and endurance training. In other words, how do we do these dances with life to reach our greatest connection with the Most High unless we have rituals within our spirituality? There's always a letting go of something to be the most alive that we can be. There is no life, true life, without these rituals, including letting go. Without it, there's only death, cycles of sabotage, trauma repetition, excuse-making, procrastination, victimhood, and over-association with narratives we tell ourselves, over-association with the ancestry we picked up in this incarnation, over-association with relationships we may have invested in with wholehearted efforts that felt futile in the end or had results that were disappointing or daunting. And what do from that point? We then live in that dizzied operating mode, the I'm responding from the frazzled part of my nervous system operating mode, that just don't hurt me. I always need to protect myself partially, even when there's no harm. I never trust anyone fully, even when there are safe spaces for me. But I can't see past my own pain, so I cling to my beliefs, and life has shown me confirmation of my beliefs, so I keep them. Life has shown me that there's validity to my defenses, so I keep those defenses up. The rationale is, why would I expose my soul to a world that doesn't offer it a soothing balm or something comfortable for the soul to be cloaked in while it acclimates to such radical vulnerability in this human form and radical transparency? The being thinks there's all these reasons why it cannot be naked in this world. It'll be seen as too bold, too sensitive, too unusual, too not willing to conform. You see, I cannot really be naked in this world. However, in the pointings of Muji, he reminds us that it takes a lot of effort to be a person, but it takes no effort to be yourself. Be filled with emptiness, not in fear of it. Be full of empty. What a lovely idea that can lighten our load in the moment. Be full of empty, Muji says. Yes. And yet still we shift back to these wonderments about a quick fix. What is the quick fix? What is the ritual that we only have to do once? What is the potent elixir that need only be imbibed in a single dose? This idea, this act, this life-changing quantum level method of surrendering, of letting go, of facing our fear of death, lack, rejection, abandonment, failure, success, to face the illusions that make us ill. All of them, including the biggest one, our self. Self, this seemingly real personality concept, identity construct, personhood continuum that is really just a con, an interestingly crafted and cosmically designed scam. Not a scam to be judged as good or bad, just a scam as in not the authentic version of our truest God essence. And so we come to realize this and then relieve ourselves from the burden of this weighty, worrisome, deluded cloak that we wear, full of quirks and predictable nonsense. For those who chose a path of ascension in this lifetime, you cannot get there to your desired state of being through modern traditions. You cannot get there by conforming to society's norms. You cannot get there while focused on people-pleasing and sidestepping triggers. It is the deepest of all journeys, the devotional space, the surrendered place, the land of the free within. For those who specifically chose a path of ascension, without embracing this idea to surrender, life will find ways to make us. Without willing ourselves towards this act of surrendering, life will find ways to make us. Without wildly forging into a knowing that becomes known, a knowing that becomes known in real time through direct experience by living this life-changing quantum level method of surrendering, of letting go. Without doing all of this, life will find ways to make us or lead us to surrender, meaning nothing else we do will truly work. No matter how logical, wise, well-prepared we are, rational, how positive our intent may be, our approach to survival, our approach to service giving and relationship building, we will always fall short. Somewhere we'll look at our lives in the material level, the circumstances, the emotional body. It doesn't align. It doesn't thrive. It doesn't flourish. So what is it all about? How do we do this surrendering? By becoming master over the slave in order to set the slave free entirely and forevermore. First, we recognize the ego mind as an attempted master, yet really it is a slave unto itself. This thing we acknowledged earlier as the con, the scam. It needs to know where its security is sourced and how many dollars are coming in and who its admirers are. It must be given its provisions so it can stay comfortable in its confines where it thinks all is well. until consciousness, the master of all, overlays itself, until pure consciousness, the master of all, infuses itself, makes itself known as the end-all, be-all, true source of authentic information and experience. And until we open ourselves and set the enslaved ego-mind self-identity construct free, then the enslaved ego-mind self-identity construct wants to control an existence it doesn't even understand the origins of. Until we set it free, it wants to control a path it doesn't even comprehend how it landed upon. Until we set it free, it wants to control people who it doesn't even know the deepest inner workings of. For every being is seen only through the lens of one's limited perception and programming at the time. If the lens of perception isn't clean and the heart isn't purified, then everything is laced with misunderstandings and falsities. Again and again, counterparts drown in quicksand because they didn't choose the terrain of compassion that really holds them up. They didn't choose self-mastery, mastery over the fake self, the little self. They didn't choose it in the same space-time pulse point they co-created. They cling to the I. I am not figured out or well known by you simply because you discovered some things which delight me or spent a prolonged period of time with me or you know of my earthly aspirations. I am an infinite, glorious, ever-becoming thing. That's true. But who am and what is I? I is an idea thought of by a great and grand artist who makes only custom works, produces only uniquely signatured alchemists who eventually come into remembrance beautifully, brutally, dutifully, but they come into remembrance until dissolved of all illusions and reunited in etheric molecular fusion and vaporized outward throughout eternity of learning to be, not clinging, attaching, reacting, controlling, but creating, responding, moving on, flowing. But we wonder what will be the quality and stability of our reality if we live so free in this surrendered state. How lonely it seems, how wild, how novel, how scary, how adventurous, and all these fluctuations. Thus, meditation is a must. Mastering the mind and having a lucid relationship with the element of time is essential. Surrendering control so momentum can get on its roll and be buttered by synchronicity and seemingly miraculous, spectacular gifts because we allow our house of glass to become unhinged. For those who chose a path of ascension, breathe in knowing. Breathe in knowing that your needs are met by a mysterious storehouse, a storehouse with no lock and key, no measurable square footage, no quantifiable inventory, just a treasure trove of succinctly orchestrated encounters and discoveries of which no control is needed. And wouldn't that be the most boring of stories to ever read about? That you controlled the how and the what and the who and the when and the end and the dynamic, and no richness and fulfillment really ensues like that. There's always a letting go required. The mysticality of surrender can be quite practical when we're aligned with the knowing that the seasons are moving in our favor for the purpose of soul growth and ascension. We can be practical in our patience and perseverance along the path. For example, we pursue that which we're called towards, inspired by, and passionate about because we know it isn't natural to be stagnant. That's a practical approach in our mysticality. We practice patience to enjoy the blessings that each day and night has for us, and we do it and we enjoy it in peace. So we employ the patience within us because we know it isn't natural to be constantly frustrated. We're being practical in our approach to the mysticality of surrendering because we grasp We understand that we're in a fluxing vessel with ever-changing biorhythms, responding to a fluxing environment with ever-changing weather patterns and cosmic transits. We're around a fluxing species with ever-changing moods and perspectives and approaches. And we're practical in our surrendering, and we're calm in the eye of the storm, or in mid-swing in these transitional periods of life, or when we're aligned with gravity as we descend on a steep slide because we thought that would be a fun momentary ride. We knew the sliding down part would be but seconds relative to our exploration of the whole playground, but we wanted the exhilaration of such a free sensation, whether or not we land on our feet or our butt or land hard or gracefully. We knew we would land and then discover more. That's the knowing within surrendering. That's the nature of it. Keep radiating truth. Keep peeling the layers. Keep purging. For there's always a letting go before sweeter things are tasted, before new nectars are savored, before new worlds are revealed. Whenever needed, rest, but do not sleep this life away. Be steadfast, but not rigid. Be exalted, but not insistent. For whatever you imagine likely pales next to what can truly be when you set yourself free and let God lead.